I came from a poor family, and we didn't have a lot of the luxuries that a lot of my classmates had. But I always discovered a great value in the library, and I read every book I could put my hands on about travel. And when I was about 14, I just started high school, and my journalism teacher, a wonderful woman, was a friend for life, had said, "You know, Harry, with a little perseverance, a little hard work, keeping your curiosity and imagination, you know, you might someday become a famous journalist." And at 14, I understood what a reporter was, and I knew what a newspaper was, but the word journalism, was a pretty big word. And I remember going to the library and looking up in the dictionary, journalism. One who is always in search of the news and facts and reporting them, not analyzing them, but, well, with my interest in so many things, I thought, boy, if I could travel the world, and meet interesting people and write about them and make money, hallelujah. Well, if I can reveal one personal anecdote, I left home when I was 14 years of age. There were certain family circumstances, conditions that, quite young, and just to support myself, I had a number of non-journalistic jobs, if you will. I delivered newspapers. I had 150 clients every day I took the newspaper to. I worked in a drugstore, a pharmacy, as what we call in America, soda jerk. We worked behind the treat counter for ice cream and Coca-Cola and such things. I had another job working in a sugar factory, cutting sugar beets. These were jobs just to live. I was able to save some money with the thought of someday going to a university and studying my first love, which is journalism. I continued to write. There wasn't a day all through high school that I wasn't writing something every day. Wasn't published, but I developed that discipline of writing. So my first journalism job was at the local newspaper. I couldn't get a job full-time, but I would look for ideas that might make a story and write them up as though they were going to be purchased. And I would go into the editor and I would say, "Is this something you can use?" And gradually, every other article I would bring in, the editor would say, "Hey, this is worth $10. So it started very young. But the other jobs, in the sugar factory, in the drugstore, delivering the newspapers, all contributed to my knowledge of things I would write about later. I've written about the soda jerk. I've written about the worker in the factory. I've written about young boys delivering newspapers. It's all contributed to Harry Morgan's education as a journalist. What's been your best experience and your worst experience? Because in journalism, you have them all. I guess my memory goes back to the first time I saw my name over an article with my name, and I was so proud of it. It wasn't a great story, but it had my name on it, and several days later, various people asked me, they said, "You were wrong on these numbers. You were wrong on some of your facts." And I realized that it was my name, and that's all we have in life, is the reputation, our name. And I realized that from now on I have to be objective, honest, accurate, and that carried me through some of the best experiences in life. And to be patient. You know, it's very difficult to be patient as a journalist. You want to get the news now, get it out tomorrow. As it turned out, very early in my career, I was able to do some traveling abroad, and back in the 1960s, a long time ago, I was interviewing Indira Gandhi in New Delhi. She was the prime minister, and a very difficult interview. I had a list of questions, much like you people, and went in, and I was getting yes, no, that's too personal. I was getting nothing, and I realized that maybe I just better call it a day, not waste my time or the prime minister's time. But on my way out, I turned and I said, you know, Mrs. Gandhi, I'm going to be in India for a few weeks. Can you think of another story, another interesting person that I could interview? And she thought for a moment. And this was the only moment that I got some life from Mrs. Gandhi. And she said, well, yes. Why didn't you ask so in the first place? There's a woman in Calcutta, India. She's a Catholic nun. And for many years, she's been working with the poorest of the poor in Calcutta. Her name is Mother Teresa. And Mother Teresa is a name that is known around the world today. But then she was quietly doing her Christian work in Calcutta. But there was something in Mrs. Gandhi's expression that made me, that night, get on an airplane, go to Calcutta, finally meet Mother Teresa, and with my notebook in hand, I started asking her questions, and she was not amused or impressed with my celebrity as a journalist, and she said, I'm not interested in publicity. You know, it took me 7 years to get the interview with Mother Teresa. Every year I would go to India, as I did in other countries, and still Mother Teresa wasn't interested in publicity. 7 years later, she agreed, and that's another story. But in my travels, according to my children, I've been to 107 countries as a journalist. Isn't that great? To be paid to travel and see the world? That's right. Victor Hugo, the writer, said something I thought was very important. An idea is important when its time has arrived. An idea is important when its time has arrived. And I think the success of WPI, World Press Institute, through the years had a lot to do with when we started it, which was 35 years ago. This is our 35th anniversary year. I started the program in 1961, thinking that, well, it may last a year, 2 years, 3 years, and as it turned out, we are now celebrating our 35th anniversary. We have more than 500 journalists, men and women from all over the world, almost 100 countries, that have come to the United States privately, not through the government. This was private. Dieter Bohl, a remarkable journalist from Germany, from Hamburg, who is editor of Die Zeit. Max Hastings, a young man that I chose when he was 19. No university education, no journalism school, but he had the essence of what a journalist should be all about. And today, Max is the editor-in-chief of London's Daily Telegraph. And you can go on and on and on. The exciting thing for me, of course, is that out of 500 alumni, about 90% of them are still in journalism. Others have become ambassadors, or Kofi Annan has gone into the United Nations work, but 90% of the people who passed through the World Press Institute today are still journalists, or they're like me, retired. As a student studying journalism at Rutgers University near New York City, and DeWitt Wallace, the owner and editor and publisher of Reader's Digest, he founded the Digest in 1922. And he read this article in the New York Times about my work and was a little miffed because he had written to me a year earlier saying, keep us posted. And he called me on the phone at the university and he said, why did you let the New York Times scoop us? You know, scoop, jump. And I said, well, you've already written the article. And he said, well, let's have lunch. And so, being a university student, I never turned down a free lunch, never. So I accepted, went into New York, met DeWitt Wallace, good friend who would soon become my boss. And he said, Harry, what are you going to do with your life? I said, well, I've got one more year of university, and then I think I would like to do something with the United Nations or a State Department, something that will involve me in the international community. And he said, well, what about your work with friendship ambassadors and your foreign students? And I said, well, you've got to earn some money to eat. And he said, well, I know a man who can make it possible to do both, to have a salary and continue your work with foreign students and become a journalist, become an editor. And on that day in 1959, with nothing to sign, just a handshake, DeWitt Wallace hired me while I was still at university to become a roving editor for Reader's Digest. And well, I was associated for almost a quarter of a century in one fashion or another. A roving editor, senior editor, public relations, helping the Wallace family with their philanthropies. So I say about a quarter of a century altogether. That's why it's hard to call one job a career. There were many careers with the Digest, and it's still today the largest read, largest circulated magazine in the world, 19 languages. The Digest has a kind of expression. More people read the Reader's Digest in the world than any other printed page other than the Holy Bible.